when you hop into your vehicle, it saves, which lags me for like half a second, and
Oh.
spun me around in a cave with like no defining features and not within sight of any of my stuff. So all of a sudden I just spun wildly and had no idea where I was. Figured I'd bring that up. I feel like they could have done MCU Thanos better, because like the mentality behind that was interesting, but the way they did it for him was stupid.
I agree. I had much I wanted from it, and
I feel like MCU Thanos could have just, instead of the snap, he should have just, wanted to take over everything so that he could fix this problem, because, like, nobody seemed to get it.
Yeah, right. That would have been much more realistic as a character motivation.
Because he could have straight up, like, sat there and said, like, you're all pretty much just crazy and selfish, look at what we're doing to everything that we have. We're just, thoughtlessly using it all and wasting it for our own, like, vanity and some other stuff. And you could even, like, have the hidden hypocrisy in the back being like, yeah, but you're not that much better, Thanos. Even though, he doesn't practice what he preaches, who knows, just to give him some reason why he's not just, like, a super relatable villain.
That could have been a really good movie.
Because, like,
wait,
I had that thought after a certain point. It's like, no, actually, Thanos is super right here. They just wrote him like a dumbass so that he would be, a villain.
This is a really interesting thing, actually, because I think you're absolutely right that, like, this could have been written to be more compelling and that sort of thing. I am curious, is it that, like, a large part of the American audience wouldn't like such a morally gray film? Or is it that the international market wouldn't respond to that very well? I think a good example of it would actually be that China has some censorship things where they won't let certain things be too morally ambiguous, like about who the good guys are. And if they made Thanos really like they leaned in on it like a little bit to try and make him a more sympathetic villain, but not that much. And if they made him trying to do like authoritarian role because it's for the best of the people, but like ultimately criticizing that view, it wouldn't have been very like, it would have been a very nuanced sort of thing. It would have had that sort of moral gray that I think could have damaged the international market sales. But I think furthermore, I think in particular in China, having something that looks at a well-meaning but ultimately destructive dictatorship could look a little bit too much like...
I mean, you don't even have to show it off as being destructive. Like, you could straight up just have it... Well, yeah, I could see it not doing well in China. Have him be an enlightened monarch
and the Avengers still stop him?
Yeah.
That would have been... Okay, that would have been such a good follow-up to... that would have been such a good follow-up to the Ultron movie, right? Because like that's ultimately like Tony Stark is trying to take control of the world's security for other people, and ultimately endangers them because he thought he knew what was best, and like he made mistakes in how he did that, and other people had to pay the consequences for it. And so then having the Avengers stop Thanos, even though Thanos hasn't yet made mistakes, just because they're uncomfortable with one person accumulating too much power. It would be so morally gray, and I absolutely see why they didn't do it.
Yeah, 100%.
I wish they did.
Yep. Did you ever see Megamind?
I've watched some clips from it.
It wasn't exactly the best example of like a relatable villain. Like, it was a decent one, but it wasn't like amazing. But I really found
the good guy in that is like. The good guy in that is some hero who's like kind of.
Well, he's Superman that just wanted to retire.
Oh, okay.
Quick synopsis of Megamind. Megamind is effectively... I don't exactly know the best parallel for him, but effectively he's the villainous counterpart to a superhero, a Superman equivalent. And
Lex Luthor, right?
Yeah, it's like if Lex Luthor was actually an alien, possibly from the same planet as Superman. I don't think they were actually from the same planet, but it was one of those where they were both aliens, both thrown in kind of the same orphanage setup, raised in the same way, but because he was blue and had a big head, everybody was mean to him, which put him on kind of a villainous stint. But in reality, he just wanted to be loved and had friends, and he was just kind of jealous of the hero. Which, like, you know, worked as a basic plotline, but I just liked the idea of this, like, overtly kind of villainous guy actually just being a good person. And I've been looking for more media where the villain is not strictly villainous. Oh, we don't need a trade platform. What am I doing?
So I think we need to first start by writing some Avengers fan fiction.
Yes.
Well, I found one kind of stack of debris. But like, can we shred the large and medium debris yet? Because the meteor shredder doesn't seem to be doing
I'm
that.
getting the chem lab now, and I'm gonna see if we can get working on that. Oh right, Megamind was raised in prison. Somewhat. He wasn't fully raised in prison, was he? I thought he was straight up like raised in a.
I think he was, because I think his like.
I just remember like
a crash landing site was different from.
Oh, maybe that was it. It's been a while since I've seen Megamind. I just thought it was like a decent movie at the time because it was like actual sympathetic villain, but his motivations were kind of boring. He just wanted love, and it's like, I want to see like more superhero media where it's just like the superheroes are not necessarily just good.
Yeah.
And the villains aren't just like I don't know. I just want to see what's a good example. I don't know. I just want to see Thanos.
I mean,
that's it.
Right. I really wanted to like it because I think that there is like kind of an attempt to say like, hey, actually, like Thanos' plan worked, but like just as a by the way, like Thanos' like understanding of population ecology was like.
Oh yeah.
I think the real issue is that it was too one size fits all. It was like yeah, all places everywhere need to have the population reduced by like a factor of 2 in order to have stability. Like, no, like some places maybe Earth, like you could make that argument, and I think that would still be wrong ultimately, because I think like the solution, if we really wanted to get serious about like avoiding climate change on Earth, I think there are solutions that definitely don't involve reducing the population. Like that's kind of a really lazy solution. And if you had the Infinity Gauntlet, you definitely don't need to go with the lazy solution.
Yeah.
You could like actually fix it, kind of like what you were describing.
It would solve like a decent amount though if like everybody only had one kid for like several generations, right?
It would cause a lot of problems that I think even, you know, now that I mentioned China a moment ago, China, I think, is handling this one well because it has a large population still. But ultimately, it's going to be like a pretty difficult demographic issue having like one child take care of both of their parents and potentially 4 of their grandparents in their old age. Because now that people are living longer, like, yeah, I mean, there are going to be a lot of people who are going to be trying to take care of, like, it'll be like a 6-to-1, like people in need of care. So, like, yeah, I think Europe's actually having a pretty serious issue in that they have a negative population growth in a number of countries. And to some respect, without immigration, America would too. And, you know, I think probably the most ridiculous thing about being so mad about all of this immigration is the fact that, like, America would have serious problems if we completely cut off immigration, just in that our population growth rate would become negative, and we would have a lot of problems with going into like economic stagnation as well.
I mean, that's already super apparent in anywhere that isn't kind of suburbia or a city. Because like even driving across the country for like to get to Kansas and then to get to here, we passed through a lot of real dead towns.
Yeah. You know, I think it's interesting because if you look at like states that have low or negative population growths, I think they're, the only one that really has a negative population growth consistently has been West Virginia, and absolutely. I mean, I think that, yeah, the lack of a major economic center in West Virginia is turning out to be the most significant cause of their economic plight. And then for the places that do still exist there, the automation means that, there just don't need to be as many people working there. But yeah, and then as you're saying, like a lot of people are moving into urban and suburban areas because those economic centers wind up being things that are driving that value. But then I think beyond that, just like in terms of population growth, like we don't have enough people in the right places in America frequently. That there are jobs, but people need to be willing to relocate as part of it.
Which is rough? Like,
Yeah,
I would
mean,
have
it's totally
never
rough.
moved to Portland if I didn't have a job beforehand. And, like...
But I think
that's...
I think the main thing I want to express is that, like, immigrants will move to where the job is because, like, if they're already coming to the United States, they're not tethered to a particular location. So kind of the narrative that they're taking our jobs is not...
No, that's always
yeah.
been... that's specifically...
But it was much more mainstream like 20 years ago. Like, I think now that's very much... It's become a Republican Party line, but it used to be something that, like, Democrats would have been much more willing to
I think
accept.
a lot of that is purely just the stoking fears in people that specifically are, are in an area like West Virginia. It's a lot scarier to think, someone's going to come and take your job if there aren't enough jobs to go around.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, because I think you're right. Ultimately, it's these places that are most vulnerable where that message is going to be most compelling. But given that that's not a place of like large labor supply, it generally isn't the place that most people want to move to. I mean, like, we think a lot of economic growth has actually been happening. I think that there's still a lot of people who want to stay closer to communities that they feel more comfortable in, and a lot of those Hispanic communities are near southern borders. But like then economics in like California and Texas have had like a lot of economic growth, and I think you could argue one part of that is because there are people that are moving into it, but another part is people want to stay there because there's economic growth. But like that means that it's not so competitive for jobs in the areas that have seen that growth, where there are places people want to stay.
The other thing, and maybe this is a flawed perspective, is as somebody that can be anywhere in the country, it's very hard for me to say justify moving to West Virginia because it just lacks the amenities that I'm looking for.
Yeah. It's funny to me because I think West Virginia is like beautiful, and I really enjoyed
I'm
when I
sure.
went there. Yeah, I was actually recently talking to one of my friends, was that we were driving through West Virginia. We'd gone there for vacation, and there was a radio telescope. And kind of that cool moment where the radio telescope just kind of looms out of the fog as we're driving, and we had not realized it was going to be there.
That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, like after being there and like that experience, there was a part of me that was like, well, if I could work remotely, like, would I consider moving to somewhere like that? Like, it's gorgeous. But yeah, it would be tough. It's not something I think I would choose after having thought more about it and looked more into. I guess there were a lot of personal accounts that people said it's not a place that they felt was very welcoming to them when they were there, for people moving from out of state.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think things like that can be factors as well.
Because I would love to move to a place filled with like a bunch of remote workers.
Yeah.
That has like effectively a small culture of... Let's see, I don't know if I can actually just check this in here. This better work. But I don't know, I just like to see more towns and areas start catering to like remote work. One, because I think we need it, and two, I think it would solve a lot of problems.
Did I tell you I made a bet with some of my friends over this?
No?
So it was a couple years ago now, so well before the pandemic, but I was saying I I think that remote work is going to become a thing, and I think as it becomes a thing, we're going to see communities that are cropping up more and more that specifically cater to that. Um, and the answer initially was not quite that remote work wasn't really becoming normalized in the way I was personally hoping it would be, but it was starting to be that there were a lot of places that said, hey, wait a minute, like we don't actually need all of our employees to be in one centralized location. We're happy with having offshoots around the country. I mean, certainly the big temp companies have been doing stuff like that, but like, ultimately my company currently, even before the pandemic started, was talking about having a center in Canada actually. And I think what we've seen so far with the pandemic is that, yeah, like it actually is quite doable with current technology and the right social customs to collaborate effectively with people who aren't there in person. So I think, your desire was starting to happen a little bit. I think, I forget which town it is, but it's like I think it's like Boise. Is that the one? Was starting to become like a minor tech hub, and there's like a variety around the country that are starting to see that happen.
Yeah, I have to admit, as a quick thing, I didn't immediately trigger in my head, but one of the developers is hanging out in chat.
Oh, cool. That's fun.
Yeah.
They
He's
don't get to
talking
see
about
me.
how.
Talking about what?
Oh, he's talking about how they're affected by the virus, positively affected, that they'll be supporting remote work employees for this. Everybody who's in the same area. I know a number of dev studios have been doing that. As somebody that remote works probably for the rest of his life, it's nice. I do miss having coworkers that I could like go out to lunch with or dinner with, but like it's a minor grump.
Would you do that often when you were working for that subcontractor for Nickelodeon?
Yeah. Actually moving back to Canada in 3 weeks. I would love to do that, maybe. Like, Toronto area is high on the list of one of the next places that I would try moving to, if I could. I'm assuming right now that'd be a hard no from everyone involved, but... Let's see. Also, I guess, quick thing before we get back on topic, but shout out for fixing all the netcode issues, because this is much smoother than it used to be.
And I was going to say shout out for making this truck drive over literal mountains.
That too. Still lots left to fix. I understand. All right, let's see. We were talking about remote work and how things would work.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it's worked well for us so far. We have, I don't know, I almost feel like our employees, we've got like one guy who's on the other, no, we've got like, I think 2 people who are in Asia. I think one that's in Europe. A few that are on the West Coast, and I guess the rest of us are still on the East Coast, but we'll see if they start to diffuse or not as this becomes more normalized. Yeah, I mean, I think there probably are still advantages, but I think that there are also, I think there are certainly pretty high costs to office space. And I think
that's what I was thinking about. Well,
yeah.
Even just beyond that, commuting. If you could, like, take everybody that does not actually need to go into an office and remote all of them, I want to say the statistics for, like, cutting down road traffic it's like a 40% loss or something silly large like that.
Yeah, I'd believe it. I mean, because ultimately, I think that the busiest time for driving in most anywhere in the U.S. is during rush hour, which is commute times. Yeah, I think a kind of interesting thing was I thought I would have more time as a result of not needing to commute, but it turned out that a half-hour bike ride has been replaced by like half-hour of exercise. That ultimately, because I was able to chain exercise with my commute, I found that I still needed to replace the exercise with something, and I It's kind of got to just be its own thing now instead of part of the commute. But I guess I never liked the bike ride too much. It always felt a little bit stressful. Mostly
because you had to worry about traffic.
Turns. Yeah, and it was heavy in traffic and just other things.
Yeah, because I had a half-hour bike ride to and from work when I was in New York, and it was lovely because it was along a canal, and I could just be like, didn't need to worry about traffic up until the very end, and then I needed to worry about traffic, and I hated it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a lot better when I was able to use the Minuteman bike trail. But that was only really for one internship that I really got to do that.
I can now harvest the big stuff.
Okay.
So
Cool.
keep bringing that back.
I'm seeing that my medium shredder is growing stuff on it, but it seems to be very slowly. It seems to be quite a bit of scrap to build anything out of it.
Yeah, I think it's the big stuff that gets you a lot.
I figured, which is why I've been trying to bring it back for you. But ultimately, I think the suggestion of compressing stuff, it turns out is the only way I can actually carry certain things.
Speaking of, how much graphite can I get?
You mean out of this?
Do you want a bunch of graphite?
What are you making it out of? The soil canisters?
No, a trading platform.
Oh.
I can get you 8 graphite right now.
For what? Like, what are we trading for that?
Scrap.
Oh, that doesn't seem worthwhile, does it? I mean,
I don't know.
It seems like I could just keep getting graphite from.
True. Here, I'll just I'll just start putting all of my soil into graphite for you, because at this point I am straight up not using it.
Yeah, the scrap is kind of a scarce resource, whereas the graphite, like, it certainly helps with the process, but I only need to get probably like 3 or 4 of it at a time. And then it takes a long time to go find the stuff
probably
I
get
need.
you the large rover and a couple other things. Like, you want to hang out for a little bit so I can give you a quick overview of what we're doing in some other goals.
Science, right?
Oh well, I mean, the science has actually been incredibly helpful. Nope, that's not carbon.
Sure, I can stick around for a moment and we can talk about something other than like what we're going to do with the science.
So obviously we want a lot of scrap because that gets us access to any resource no matter where we are. But the chemistry lab, if you want to come all the way over here, will let us make rubber, plastic, aluminum alloy, and tungsten carbide, and graphene, and even diamonds.
Okay.
Without a gas, and then we're going to need some gases. And so if you want to just kind of take a look at that, I usually just Google the charts instead because that's easier.
Is that not in the Astropedia?
I don't think so. I kind of wish the Astropedia was like just straight up was a web browser with a wiki. I love the presentation of the Astropedia, but it's kind of one of those where it's like, but it only has so much information. It'd be cool if, like, as you discovered it, it would fill out or something, but
yeah,
I don't know.
You know, eventually there's a lot to ask.
Yeah, oh, I'm sure.
Is
and
this
it's
how
not
I would?
Like,
is this the thing I would ask the developers to work on first the most?
probably
Actually,
not.
Is the developer still here? Are they still?
Nah, you had to run.
Okay. Titanium alloy. Steel.
Yeah, steel's the one we need, but I don't think we get access to that until we go back to Vesiana, because we're going to need argon.
Is it actually a thing to alloy titanium and carbon? I know it is for iron. That certainly is true.
I don't... Oh, you mean in real life? Heck if I know.
Yeah, here it's... Well, here the funny thing is it's iron and carbon make steel, but then it's titanium and graphene that makes titanium alloy, and I cannot come up with a reason that would be a good way to mix the two of those. But... Or why it would matter. The thing I'm excited about is I see that we get carbon, and carbon goes to explosive powder.
I know we can make explosives. By the way, we're on Novus, so we need silicone.
But it looks like we need fuel to make a lot of these.
Yes.
And the fuel is a specific other resource.
Yeah, so we need the atmospheric condenser for that one.
I see.
Which we can make now. I think we need plastic.
Nanocarbon alloy, which is composed of titanium alloy and steel, instead of just carbon. But what is...
Titanium is used for a car called Pagani.
Okay, so it is actually a real alloy that people make. Yeah, I mean, I was totally willing to believe that it could be alloyed like that, but I think it's the graphite, the graphene and titanium was what I was finding myself most skeptical of. But yeah, I totally believe that the alloying of it, carbon with titanium, could have somewhat similar properties to iron. I don't know enough about it to know exactly what that would look like. But graphene is just a particular configuration of carbon, and getting that to work into a metal structure. Maybe some catalysts could look like that. I could actually imagine some metal graphene catalysts that would be similar to that.
Can I take an ogle? I gotta figure out what we need for silicone, and I'm now stuck, actually. Oh, no.
I'm here monopolizing it.
Not only that, I straight up cannot move.
Okay, well, I see that there are open science bays, so I know what I need to do. We're going to save the longest lasting one for when we're leaving, right?
Okay, plastic is carbon and compounds. And silicone needs methane, which this planet has. Okay, that's good. Plastic, so we need carbon.
Titanium is something we could find on a planet somewhere too, though, right?
Yes.
We don't need to make stuff through the scrapper.
I think it's the rarest resource in the game.
Okay.
So, like, we were on the planet with titanium on it, and we just couldn't find it.
Oh, we never did?
Yeah. I found, like, part of what I needed, and that was it. And then I was just like, I give up, we'll just figure this out later.
Okay. Interesting. I guess we can go back there whenever.
Yeah. Well, I want to do a couple of things first, because we've got to get access to the center of the planet here, which means we need silicone, which means we need the atmospheric condenser, which means I mean, it's a process. It's not a long process.
So I should be still just collecting more scrap.
I guess.
Should I be helping you build stuff? I mean, like...
It's up to you. It's kind of one of those where it's like, I can easily just do everything on my own, and you just can keep delivering science, which we're going to need anyway. Yeah, what does the RTG take? Ooh, that's a question. Because the RTG is huge. I don't remember... where the RTG is on this list.
I think I enjoy the exploration aspect of all of this. It doesn't seem like it's like Factorio yet, where like the automation of it kind of poses like a really interesting problem. I suppose there's still a kind of a research management thing that's still interesting there. I think I'm going to go on one more run for scrap, and then I might work on some other things then afterwards.
Okay. Yeah, the exploration element is fun. The interesting thing is, like, after playing this game 4 times now, I've kind of done everything. It was more just kind of a fun bit. I feel bad that I haven't messed with the automation as much. Actually, why don't I give... Yeah, I'm gonna give the task of making the atmospheric condenser to you, maybe?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll do that while you play with the automation.
Yeah, because I haven't looked at that in the slightest, just
yeah,
because
that makes sense.
we
Part
didn't
of it
have
was
the resources up until now.
I was kind of enjoying just chatting and driving around in a buggy, whereas I thought your fans might want to see some more varied aspects of building the base or things like that. So I was fine just kind of handling some of those things while you thought about the other things that people would probably want to see more. But yeah, it's just
so
like
the
people
thing-
want to see automation, so yeah, go for
The
that.
thing is, the last time I was playing this, I was doing all the base stuff, and people were mad because I wasn't doing the exploration. And then for this one, I was starting to do the exploration, and people are like, "With the base," and it's like, I give a. Ooh. I think one of the problems is looking at this. A lot of the automation stuff is like actual end game. Like auto extractor is 2 steel, which we can't make. Tungsten carbine, which we can make, or tungsten carbide, and
Why can't we make
rubber.
steel? Do we not have the
need
fuel?
argon.
Oh,
Yeah.
wait.
So
Wait a second. We need argon as fuel for something.
Yup.
Can we talk about noble gas chemistry being extremely limited to very, very exotic reactions, and those generally being not a good way to get energy?
You can send mad emails to.
Get the developer back here. We need to have this discussion.
I'm curious if they actually have like anyone that has like a chemistry background, or if it was just kind of like a.
It seems like I think they knew what they were doing a little bit, and I think in that they knew that at certain points they were just doing what sounded cool instead of what like was real. Because like there have been a few things like where there was real chemistry that went into it. Like I think the hydrazine fuel is nitrogen based. That's that's a real thing, and I think argon just sounds like a cool gas name, and there aren't that many atmospheric gases, so you kind of gotta take what you can.
At least we can make hydrazine, so we're gonna need that.